Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Right, a few days ago I did a video talking about what footballer was signed to replace your club record departure. Now let's do the opposite. Let's take a look at every Premier League club's record signing and see who they were brought in to replace. Arsenal, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Alexis Sanchez. Well listen, there are a few answers I could pick for this one. Officially, in terms of like-for-like players, then yes, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was replacing Olivier Giroud in January 2018. Dragged him for 60 million quid from Borussia Dortmund. It was enough to force the future World Cup winner out the door and onto the first tube to Chelsea. But let's be honest lads, Arsene Wenger didn't demand his chiefs to empty the purse to replace Giroud. Not a hope in hell. The signing of Aubameyang, one of the top centre-forwards in Europe, was a direct reaction to losing Alexis Sanchez to Old Trafford the previous week. I'm guessing when Aubameyang looks at his old club beating PSG in the Champions League, while he's surrounded by mid-table mediocrity on a daily basis, he probably feels like smacking his head off the radiator. Aston Villa, Wesley, Tammy Abraham. Yeah, it looks like Aston Villa took in over 22 million quid on Wesley, dragging him in from Club Bruges last summer. It looks like that has somewhat backfired, doesn't it? Now that he's lying a rusted mess on the Villa treatment table. To be fair, Villa were desperate for a half-decent centre-forward, because it's always dangerous getting promoted with a borrowed source of goals. Because after Tammy Abraham smacked home 25 goals last season and inevitably returned to Chelsea, what were they actually going to do? Bournemouth, Jefferson, Lerma, Harry Arter. Yeah, we live in a world where Bournemouth can happily spend £25 million on one player. What a time to be alive. Jefferson Lerma arrived from Levante in the summer of 2018, settled into Eddie Howe's midfield, and almost single-handedly ended Harry Arter's time with the club. After being a mainstay in the heart of Bournemouth's midfield from the days of League One in 2010, since Lerma's arrival, he's found himself chucked on loan to both Cardiff and Fulham. Oh yeah, and even got shouted at by Roy Keane. Poor fella. Brighton, Alireza Jahanbakhsh, Anthony Knockaert. Yeah, it's taken Alireza Jahanbakhsh quite a while to find his feet, but the £17 million winger is coming good now. I suppose he was initially brought in to replace Anthony Knockaert, a former player of the year, who is now slumming on loan at Fulham. I think Alireza is an upgrade. Burnley, Ben Gibson, Michael Keane. Yeah, I touched on this one earlier. The £15 million acquisition of Ben Gibson, on paper it made sense. The lad was Mr. Middlesbrough, impressed enough to find himself linked to Man City, had World Cup dreams sprinkled in his eyes. He was surely the perfect replacement for Michael Keane, a centre-half dragged to Everton for £30 million the previous summer. Gibson has since played one game in 2 seasons. What a failure. Chelsea, Kepa, Thibaut Courtois. Well, this was the most panicked replacement I've ever seen in my life. In what world is Kepa, a then 23-year-old goalkeeper with just 2 seasons for Athletic Bilbao under his belt, worth £71 million? Never in a million years. But hey, Chelsea had just received £60 million for Thibaut Courtois, badly needed a replacement, and so Bilbao shook the entire club down by the ankles. To be fair, Kepa hasn't done terribly and did lift the Europa League last season, but you would not expect to find the most expensive goalkeeper who ever lived to be stuck on the bench less than 18 months into a 7-year contract. Christ above. Crystal Palace, Christian Benteke, Dwight Gale. Yeah, Christian Benteke is actually Crystal Palace's most expensive ever purchase. £27 million for Liverpool 3 summers ago. Whoever made that decision needs a sack and a wet slap in the face. Anyway, that same summer, top scorer Dwight Gale had been fed to the Wolves. Not literally, that would hurt. Instead, he linked up at Newcastle in the Championship, so I guess Benteke was the replacement. Here's a stat. Since 2017, Gale has spent an entire season in the Championship and then on the benches of Newcastle, has more bastard top-flight goals in that time frame than Benteke. Good lord, that is embarrassing. Everton, Gylfi Sigurdsson, Ross Barkley. When Everton discovered the future Gaza and Ross Barkley lining up the Premier League as just a teen, you would have thought when they eventually cashed in on the overhyped Englishman, they'd probably receive upwards of 60 million quid. Instead, the club played their cards terribly. Watched him fail his medical at Chelsea, left him to rot as an injured almost corpse on their books for 6 months, before flogging him to Stamford Bridge for a cut price £50 million. £15 million in this current climate, when square-headed shoeboxes are moving for 80 million, horrendous. And to make it worse, signing his replacement, they were forced to hand over 50 million quid for the services of a 27-year-old Gylfi Sigurdsson. When clubs like Swansea City are able to shake you down for that sort of cash, how the hell did you end up selling Barkley for just a fraction? Leicester, Youri Tielemans, Napoli's Mendy. Yeah, Youri Tielemans arrived in a £40 million deal from Monaco. Why on earth did that club ever let him go? Imagine him and Cesc Fabregas on the same midfield. Mouth-watering. Anyway, he came in, edged Napoli's Mendy onto the bench as Brendan Rodgers altered the club's way of playing. Excellent stuff. Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk, Dejan Lovren. During the 17-18 season, Liverpool needed a new centre-half like you wouldn't believe. Both defence and goalkeeper were the club's massive Achilles heel. For Christ's sake, Dejan Lovren had produced a performance at Spurs that looked as though he was drunk on bath salts. The arrival of Virgil van Dijk for £75 million for Southampton has eventually seen Lovren shoved down the pecking order, currently 4th choice at Anfield. And to think he actually views himself as world class. Christ above. Man City, Rodri, Fernandinho. Yeah, I know Fernandinho is still getting games, but lads, it doesn't take a genius to realise that Rodri was clearly his direct replacement. The Brazilian defensive midfielder turns 35 in May. Rodri, a £60 million rated Spaniard dragged in from Atletico Madrid, just so happens to play in his position and is just at 12 years his junior. You don't get much more of an obvious replacement than that. Man United, Paul Pogba, Morgan Schneiderlin. Yeah, this entire move was essentially Jose Mourinho turning his nose up at his predecessor's suggestions. According to Louis van Gaal, Morgan Schneiderlin was just a tonic for Manchester United's stagnant stagnated midfield. Within 5 minutes of arrival, Mourinho effectively said no thanks, chucked him in the reserves, splashed out £80 million to Paul Pogba from Juventus before flogging Schneiderlin to Everton in January for a cut price $20 million. Yes, Pogba has his problems, but I think it's fair to say he's been an upgrade. I mean, you should hope so. He cost over $60 million more. Newcastle, Joe Linton, Salomon Rondon. If you're talking about downgrades, look no further than this. I'll never understand. Apparently one of the reasons Rafa Benitez was forced out of Newcastle was things like this. After scoring 12 goals last season, Salomon Rondon was the obvious choice to tie down on a permanent basis from West Brom. But apparently the club hierarchy didn't want to pay £60 million for a 29-year-old centre forward, and so promptly chucked £40 million at Hoffenheim for Joe Linton, a striker clearly allergic to goals. Joe Linton has 1 league goal in 25 games. Not a single Premier League striker at St James's Park is directly responsible for this monstrosity, embarrasses himself on a weekly basis, while Rondon almost tied up a switch to Man United. What an absolute calamity. Norwich, Ricky van Wolfswinkel, Grant Holt. Yeah, pretty simple here. Go back to the summer of 2013 and aging Grant Holt was thanked for his years of service and tossed out to Wigan for less than £2 million. Why did they need him? They just announced the signing of £8.5 million Dutch superstar Ricky van Wolfswinkel from Sporting Lisbon. This was a lightning quick striker with a deadly touch, surely brought in to lead the Canaries into Europe. He scored in his debut, and then that was it. 1 goal in 25 games, got relegated, and was then spat out on 2 successive loans. Grant Holt would have been better than that. Sheffield United, Sander Berg, John Lundstrom. Yeah, this is a weird one. Arguably Sheffield United's best midfielder in the first half of the season was Scouse-born John Lundstrom. For Christ's sake, he has 115 points in Fantasy League, and so Chris Wilder ends up chucking £22 million on Sander Berg, a 22-year-old Norwegian from Genk, relegating Lundstrom to bench-warming duty. I don't really understand it either, but who am I to attempt to understand the logic of a lad who offered a permanent deal to Jack Rodwell? Southampton, Danny Ings, Manolo Gabbiadini. Well, yeah, Danny Ings only made his move to Southampton permanent last summer, leaving Liverpool for £20 million, but he was there on loan the previous year, swiftly relegating massive flop Manolo Gabbiadini to bench-warming duty. To be fair, after a bright start, the Italian have quickly proved to be absolutely woeful and was sold to Sampdoria within 4 months of Ings' arrival on loan. Considering Ings has since smashed in 18 goals in 30 games this season, good lord what a signing. Tottenham, Tanguy Ndombele, Eric Dyer. Can we call Tanguy Ndombele a flop yet? Come on, a £60 million signing from Lyon last summer. He really hasn't done it, has he? The man currently finds himself out of favour under Jose Mourinho. I'm expecting a European loan for Mr. Ndombele this summer. Anyway, I suppose he was intended to replace Eric Dyer. Another man surely counting down the days until his Spurs exit. Watford, Ismail Assar, Roberto Pereira. To be fair, it's taken Ismail Assar a while to find his feet, but yeah, the man was a near £30 million signing from Rennes last summer. For a few months, he looked an utter flop, but under Nigel Pearson, he's bagged a few goals and mostly kept the likes of Roberto Pereira, a Champions League finalist who Troy Deeney claimed was the best player he'd ever played with, rooted firmly to the bench. Then again, Deeney also described Nathaniel Chalobah as a £50 million player. He's gonna make a hilarious pundit one day. West Ham, Sebastian Haller, Andy Carroll. Okay, I know Andy Carroll didn't really play much for West Ham last season, or for the last 7 years of his life, but still, if we're talking like-for-like players, then yeah, clearly £40 million Sebastian Haller, arriving from Eintracht Frankfurt, was the obvious direct replacement. Haller hasn't been great. 6 goals in 27 games does not befit a £40 million striker, but at least it's better than Joe Linton, good lord. Wolves, Raul Jimenez, Leo Bonatini. Raul Jimenez has been absolutely sensational at Wolves. In his 2 seasons in the top flight, he's bagged 37 goals in 84 games. Absolutely incredible. He's getting snapped up by European giants soon, isn't he? Anyway, the £30 million Mexican centre forward was the clear replacement for Leonardo Bonatini, a Brazilian striker who batted home 12 goals in 47 games as Wolves won promotion. Fair play to Nuno Espirito Santo for sensing that yes, they needed a clear upgrade up front. Anyway, that's the end of it, lads. Tell me, what do you think? Have I been too harsh? Have I not been harsh enough? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give a like, share and subscribe. And as always, I'll talk to you in a while.